Hi guys, after completing in the previous class the first chapter of Direct Tax M4, Clubbing of Income, now I take one of the most important and a very interesting chapter, Set off and Carry Forward of Losses. Set off and Carry Forward of Losses. Now, it's been a trend, clubbing sums also come only, but every examiner, even when this chapter was in SYBAF boards, I told you earlier, every year a question has come from this. At least 7 to 8 marks and sometimes even 15 marks a question has come. And again, like the previous chapter, when we are going to solve the sum, there will be many sums which we are going to do are SYBAF board sums. Now, before I start, let's first see what exactly we are supposed to do in this chapter. Name of the chapter, Set off and Carry Forward of Losses. Now, previous semester 3 में you all have studied direct tax, correct? Remember 5 taxable heads of income. क्या था 5? Income from salary first, second income from house property, third income from business profession, fourth income from capital gains, and fifth other sources. Salary, house property, business profession, capital gains, and other sources. We also did the chapter computation of total income in addition to the individual chapters. The total of all the heads after giving deductions under chapter 6a was your taxable amount where you have to pay the tax. Previous semester in your syllabus, there was no calculation of tax. But in this sem, in the few chapters which are going to come after a few days, we will be studying how to calculate income tax. Of course, in this chapter, calculation of tax is not there. Now guys, listen. I'll focus as what I do normally. I'll focus on the basic concept, and before we get into the sum, first let's understand the detailed meaning of the name of this chapter, Set off and Carry Forward of Losses. Now guys, say for example, during the current year, you have earned a taxable income of 5 lakhs. When I say taxable income, after giving all the deductions either under the respective heads of income or under chapter 6a, your taxable income is 5 lakh rupees. You will pay tax at the rate of 5 lakh. Now, there are slabs up to certain amount, this much is the tax, above that this much, in addition to above that this much. That I am not getting into that because that will come in the later on chapters. If I discuss now, it will be unnecessary dragging, which is not to be done in this chapter. So let's take an example. I am just assuming a hypothetical figure, taking the rate as 20%. The actual rates are different according to the slab, but I am just taking. Say so let's take 10%. So I'll take 10%. So 5 lakh ka 10%, 50,000. I will pay 50,000 tax. Now, what is the name of the subject? Direct tax. And what are you studying in direct tax? Income tax. What is income tax? Income tax is a tax. Income tax is the tax which you pay on the income earned. Income tax is the tax what you pay on the income earned. Okay, so I have earned 5 lakh rupees. I will pay tax 50,000. Correct? Only if you have an income, you will pay tax. If there is no income, there is no tax. That is the basic thing. Now, set off and carry forward. First, let's see what is set off. After explaining what is set off, then I get into the second part, that is carry forward. Now see guys, In this example, I gave you the assessee, that means the person who is earning the income, has earned a taxable amount of 5 lakh, and on that he has paid tax 50,000. Now say for example, instead of having 5 lakh ka income, had he incurred a loss of 3 lakhs. Instead of 5 lakh ka income, had he incurred a loss of 3 lakhs. But obvious, loss hai, there is no income. So if there is no income, there is no question of any tax. There is loss, that means there is no income, and if there is no income, there is no question of any income tax. So yahan pe he will not pay any tax. Got it? Now guys, listen very carefully. I am taking the same example into consideration, but I am just twisting a bit. Okay? I am just twisting a bit. Let's say for example, my first year में there is a loss of 5 lakhs. My first year में there is a loss of 5 lakhs. That means there is no question of paying tax. Okay? Now listen. This is the first year. Forget whichever assessment year. Now, when I go to the second year, when I go to the second year, say for example, I have made a profit of 10 lakh. Understand this example, you will get the concept very clearly. For the next 15-20 minutes, I am explaining you the full concept of the name of the chapter. Understand that the rest of the chapter will be very simple. There are certain rules which you have to remember, but get the concept first, then you will find it very simple. Second year mein, I am making a profit of 10 lakh. Now listen, if in the first year there was no loss, can I say I am assuming the rate at 10%? I would have paid income tax of 1 lakh rupees. 10 lakh income pay, I would have paid income tax of 1 lakh rupees. 10 lakh के income पे I would have paid 10% के हिसाब से 1 lakh का income tax. Okay? Now listen very carefully. First year loss of 5 lakhs, second year profit of 10 lakhs. Now, what you can do? If I have a loss in the first year, I can set it off. I can set it off against the income. So what will happen? My second year mein there is a profit of 10 lakh. I will adjust this loss of 5 lakh. I will adjust this loss of 5 lakh. So now what happens? After adjusting loss of 5 lakh rupees against the income of 10, now my taxable income is 5 lakh. Now my taxable income is 5 lakh. So now what will happen? Where I was supposed to pay a rate of 10 lakh, income tax on the income of 10 lakh, now I will pay on the income of 5 lakh. So 50,000 rupees. Actually this example I have given carry forward also, but you just think from setup point. So क्या हुआ? This loss of 5 lakh, this loss of 5 lakh, I have set it off, I have adjusted. Set off matlab loss getting adjusted against profit. Set off means loss getting adjusted against the profit. So when I pay the tax here, I will not pay on 10 lakh, but I will pay on 5 lakh. I will not pay on 10 lakh, but I will pay on 5 lakh. That is set off. That is set off. Getting it? I'll repeat again. First year mein I made a loss of 5 lakh. Second year mein there is a profit of 10 lakh. So because in the previous year I have in the previous year I have a loss, I can set it off. So when I pay the tax for the second year, from my profit of the second year, from my profit of the second year, I will deduct my first year ka loss, and on that I will pay the tax. This is the meaning of set off. Now guys, see, I've just given you this example to understand the basic concept, but you just cannot adjust any loss against any income. There are certain conditions. You just cannot adjust any loss against any income. There are certain conditions. What are that conditions? We will see in some time, but just to give you one or two examples, you all have done previous semi capital gains, correct? If there is a long-term loss, long-term capital loss, then that you can adjust only against long-term capital gain. I'm just giving an example. If there is a long-term capital loss, you can adjust only against long-term capital gain. If there is a speculative business loss, what is speculative in saying sometime? If there is a speculative business loss, then you can adjust that only against speculative income. These are the examples. So there are certain conditions. What are that conditions? We will see after some time. Got it? So this is set off. Again, I am repeating. You just cannot set off any loss against any income. There are certain provisions when we start the sums. Before that, I'll give you some brief, and when we start the sums, gradually, step by step, we will keep on seeing the provisions. So 5 lakh ka loss in the first year, 10 lakh ka profit in the second year, 10 lakh minus 5 lakh, this is 5 lakh. So this 5 lakh is now my net income. And why we use the word set off? Because this 5 lakh ka loss, I have set it off against my income of 10 lakhs. So now my net taxable income is 5 lakhs. This is set off. Now see, second part, carry forward. In this example, already I have given you carry forward ka example also. But I'll tell you in detail. Carry forward means what? यही एग्जाम्पल में कैरी फॉरवर्ड भी आ कैसे? फर्स्ट ईयर I made a loss of 5 lakh. Now listen, if there was some income, where I could set off this 5 lakh, then it gets set off in the same year. If there was some additional income in addition to this loss of 5 lakh, I would have set it off. So what the loss is, if you are not able to set off, a loss in a particular year, then you can carry forward further, and set it off against next year's income. You can carry forward further and set it off against next year's income. So that is called as carry forward. तो देखो इसमें carry forward ही हो गया. First year का loss, I took it down, I carried forward in the second year, then I set off. So setting off can be done either in the same year or carry forward in the next year and set it off. Both the things are there. Got it? But again the same thing here. You just cannot carry forward any loss. There also there are certain restrictions, provisions are there, and there's a limitation. You just cannot carry forward losses for any number of years. Now say for example, if there is a long-term capital loss, if you are not able to set it off against long-term capital gain, then you can carry forward for 8 years. Short-term capital loss, if you are not able to set it off, you can carry forward for the next 8 years. Business loss, you can carry forward for the next 8 years. Speculative business loss, you can carry forward for 4 years. Speculation, owning and maintaining resources, you all have done in other sources. If there is a loss there, that also you can carry forward for 4 years. Then there is something called as unabsorbed depreciation. Towards the end of the chapter, there will be some on that. There is no restriction. You can carry forward for n number of years like that. And when you carry forward a loss, like say this example, there are different provisions of setting off in the same year, and there are different provisions when you carry forward and set off in the next year. That we will slowly study. So my object till now was just to make you understand the name of the meaning of the name of the chapter, that is set off and carry forward of losses. Okay guys, now listen. Getting into detail. First, set off. First is set off. Now see, you all have done, again I repeat why I explain the heads again so that you can understand this in a better way. Which are the 5 heads? Salary, house property, business profession, capital gains, other source. Now, when you set it off, the first thing is there has to be first preference for intra-head adjustment. There has to be first preference for intra-head adjustment. There has to be first preference for intra-head adjustment. What is intra-head adjustment? When I say intra-head means within the same head. Intra-head means within the same head. When I say intra-head means within the same head. Clear? That means what? If there is a house property ka loss, I will set it off against house property income. We have done earlier also. Self-occupied property mein, there is never a profit. Either there is a loss or there is no profit, no loss. That we used to adjust against let out property. Example of intra-head. There is short-term capital loss. I can adjust against short-term capital gain. I can adjust against long-term capital. I can adjust against short-term capital gain. I can adjust against long-term capital gain. Same head, intra-head. Business. I have 2 businesses, A and B. A में profit है, B में loss है. B का loss I can adjust against A. That is intra-head. So, setting off or adjusting the loss within the same head. Within the same head मतलब house property against house property, capital gains against capital gains, business against business, other source against other source. That is called as intra-head. So the first thing is you have to adjust intra-head. Getting it? First you have to adjust intra-head. After adjustment of intra-head, if still there are losses, after adjustment of intra-head, if still there are losses, the second thing what you will do is inter-head adjustment. Sorry, the second thing what you will do is inter-head adjustment. What is this? Intra, I-N-T-R-A. What is this? Inter. Intra. Intra means adjusting against same heads. Inter means adjusting against other heads. यहाँ पे क्या था? हाउस प्रॉपर्टी अगेंस्ट हाउस प्रॉपर्टी. यहाँ पे हाउस प्रॉपर्टी अगेंस्ट सैलरी. एक चीज याद रखना, सैलरी में कभी लॉस नहीं हो सकता. सो हाउस प्रॉपर्टी का लॉस अगेंस्ट सैलरी इनकम. बिजनेस का लॉस अगेंस्ट हाउस प्रॉपर्टी इनकम. हाउस प्रॉपर्टी का लॉस अगेंस्ट अदर सोर्स इनकम. उसमें भी देयर आर फ्यू कंडीशंस, बट राइट नाउ अंडरस्टैंड दिस. सो inter-head means adjusting losses against other heads when you cannot set it off against the same head. Adjusting against other heads when you cannot set it off against same heads. That is called as inter-head adjustment. So I'll repeat. First, intra-head. Adjust within the same heads. After that, if you still cannot set off, still there is a loss, then try to adjust against other heads. Adjust करो. उसके बाद, now understand this, carry forward. If I cannot adjust here, no problem. You carry forward in the next year and you adjust it against the income of the next year. But उसमें भी there are conditions. You just cannot adjust any loss against any income. That conditions I am not getting into right now because तुमको सब bouncer जाएगा. So the thing is, you understand this concept. In this class, I am taking two basic sums, very basic sums. Understand that, and then in the next class, I will increase the level of it. First दो sum कर रहा हूँ उसमें खाली set off है, carry forward कुछ भी नहीं है. Next class में we will see carry forward. So this chapter का name is set off and carry forward. This is what we are supposed to do. I'll brush up again. Set off of losses मतलब setting off your loss against the income. If you cannot set off under the same head, try to set off against other heads subject to the conditions which we will see in detail. I am not explaining in detail. And if you still cannot adjust against other heads, carry forward to the next year. And when you carry forward, there are certain restrictions. Few losses can be carried forward only up to 8 years. Few losses can be carried forward up to 4 years. And when you carry forward and set off, there are also certain restrictions. Because when you set off in the same year, there are different rules. And when you carry forward and set off, there are different provisions. So that slowly, gradually. But right now, just understand the meaning, set off and carry forward of this. Alright guys, now as I told you from the sheet, I am taking two questions. I'll just pause the video. I'll just make the table of both the sums so that I don't waste time in recording. Okay, I'll just be back. Okay guys, so I'm starting the sum. Now I just made a minor change in the question. As I told you that initially I'm just focusing on set off. No, I'm taking both set off and carry forward because it's very simple. I thought that unnecessary I'll be wasting time. So first sum says set off and carry forward, but very basic principles. Okay, so two sums I'm going to do. Both are very simple. There's one point of set off and one point of carry forward. Let's read the first question. See the first question. From the following figures, you are required to compute the total income of Vikas. They have given you respective heads of income and whether there is income or loss. First, there is house property, brackets में 10. Brackets में 10 मतलब there is a loss. So house property का loss 10,000. Capital gain. Now see, capital gain में there are both. Short term positive 1,05,000 है and long term negative 75. That means short term capital gain है and long term capital loss. That is one point. And other source 10,000 का profit. Other source 10,000 ka gain or profit. So let's start. Now listen. Those who are with me SEM 5, SEM 3. For each chapter, all the 5 taxable heads, I made you do this presentation. Center में name of the assessee, which in this case is Mr. Vikas. PAN, permanent account number, as I told you, it will remain blank. Ward number, that is in practical life, it will remain blank. For your batch, previous year 22-23. For your batch, previous year 22-23, you all know we have discussed in multiple lectures earlier, which is assessment year 23-24. Again, I repeat, assessment year is the year which follows the previous year. Previous year ka taxable income will be assessed in the next year. That is the logic of using the word assessment year. What is assessment? We have discussed in detail earlier. Legal status, individual. In this chapter, you all have sums based on individual only. And even the provisions of carry forward set of losses are almost same for all the assessors. And residential status, I told you earlier also in the other chapters of the previous semester, when nothing is mentioned, it is always assumed the assessee is resident and ordinary resident. What is resident? What is ordinarily? What is not ordinarily? Previous semester may you all have done the chapter in detail. And then computation of total income. In this chapter, as far as your syllabus is concerned, there are no chapter 6A ka deduction for this chapter. So straight away, your final answer has to be the total income. There is no need to present chapter 6A ka deduction and first college gross total income, not in your syllabus for this semester. Clear, guys? And this also, this is my way of presentation. If you all want, do this way. If your college says, do as per your college way, or if the college doesn't give, just write Mr. Vikas and computation of total income. This is more for presentation purpose. I have this habit right from the year when I started teaching tax, and because earlier it was, as I told you, this subject was in board exams of TY, so I still stick to that presentation. This is for presentation only. Now it's your college exam, so you can do what your college says. Okay, now listen. 5 heads of income. Those who are with me in the earlier sem, I have each and every summer made you write all the 5 heads of income, and we will do the same. First, salary. Can you see in the question any salary income? No. But for presentation purpose, write it. And see, you will make 2 columns. Particulars and 2 columns. Keep the length of around 8 to 10 lines. Keep the length of around 8 to 10 lines. Okay. A. Income from salary. Income from salary. Can you see any salary income? No. Salary income is not there. So, salary nil. Salary nil. Second, after salary, if you want for better presentation, leave a line. B. Income from house property. Income from house property. Is there? Yes. क्या है देखो 10,000 का loss. Now listen very carefully. What we will do? What is the general type of presentation? A particular loss. Understand this very carefully. A particular loss, we will show it here in the second main column. Second column is for the final answer of the respective heads. Second column is for the final answer of respective heads. A particular loss will come in the second column only when it can be set off interhead. That means only if a loss can be set off against within the 5 heads, then only it will come. If a loss cannot be set off in the current year and it is to be carried forward in the next year, that we will write it in each and every sum in the form of note. Even in practical life, that is the way of presenting. So a particular loss will come here only if it can be set off. Now there's a loss of 10,000, it can be set off. Right now I am not telling you the reason. Write it as and when we proceed towards the sum, I will tell you. So minus 10,000, I will write it here. House property ka loss mein there is no restriction. House property ka loss you can set it off against any income. And one very basic, you all will say sir school children ka point bata rahe ho. Salary mein there cannot be loss. The reason I am explaining you, in past students sometimes have asked me, sir salary mein loss aaya to kya kare? Salary mein loss ho hi nahi sakta. You are working somewhere. If you work, you get salary. If you don't work, you don't get salary. So salary mein kabhi bhi loss ho nahi sakta. Keep that basic thing in mind. Okay. So house property ka loss 10,000. Why I have written 10,000? I'll come to that point in 2-3 minutes. Third head क्या है अपना? Business profession. Whether that head ka income or loss is there or no, you present it for better presentation. Head C, income from business profession. The third head, we have done it in detail earlier. Income from business profession. Can you see any business profession? No. Yes, some may be near, next some may be near. So income from business profession, nil. Then what is the fourth one? Capital gains. D. Income from capital gains. Income from capital gains. Income from capital gains. Now listen, you all have done in the previous semester. When I say capital gains, there are two things. One is long term, one is short term. Short term means you hold it for a shorter period of time. Long term means longer period of time. Criteria you all know. In case of shares and debentures, the criteria was 1 year. In case of property, it is 2 years. Say for example, you are having a property. Today if I buy, if you sell within 2 years, the profit or loss is short term. And if you sell after 2 years, the profit or loss is long term. Just to brush up the basic thing of the previous semester. Now listen very carefully. There is short-term capital gain of 1,05,000. There is long-term loss of 75,000. Short-term gain, long-term loss. This understand very carefully. Seems like an intrahead adjustment. Capital gain against capital gain, but there are restrictions. Come to the first page of the theory. See there inter-source. Inter-source means intrahead. Inter-source adjustment. Inter-source adjustment means what? Inter-source means within the head. Inter-source means adjusting within the same head. Now see that point number 2. Exceptions may point number 2. What it says? Long-term capital loss can be set off only against long-term capital gain. Couple of first two something I just kept this point, therefore I decided let me start with set off and carry forward both together. So yaad rakhna, if there is any long-term capital loss, if there is any long-term capital loss, then that capital loss can be set off only against long-term capital gain. So देखो, यहाँ पे there is long-term capital gain of 75,000. यहाँ पे there is long-term capital gain of 75,000. Loss. Do you have long-term capital gain profit to set it off? I'll repeat again. Long-term capital loss can be set off only against long-term capital gain. Do you have long-term capital gain? Capital gain है लेकिन short-term है. So I cannot set off. If I would have been able to set off, I would have written positive minus negative the figure outside. So long-term capital gain, I cannot set off the loss because there is no profit from long-term capital. So this cannot be set off. I will carry forward. And what I told you, you will write only those losses here which can be set off. If it cannot be set off, you will carry forward in the next year. And long-term capital gain will be carried forward for the next 8 years. Long-term capital gain will be carried forward for the next 8 years. That means I can set it off in the next year. If not, I can carry forward for another 7 years. That means counting next year, total 8 years. Next year plus another 7. Okay, so that I will give you in the form of note. So because I cannot set off long-term capital loss, I am not writing here. I'll put it in the form of. I'm going to cover each and every varieties slowly over the next few days. So now what I'll do, there is only short-term capital gain. So here you will write short-term capital gain, that is 1,05,000. Short-term capital gain, that is 1,05,000. Got it? And now the last one, is income from other sources. Income from other sources. Now listen. Income from other sources, you all know very well. Previous sem you all have done the chapter in detail. Any taxable income which doesn't come under the first four heads. Any taxable income which doesn't come under the first four heads will be taxed under the head income from other sources. Example, interest on investments, dividend on share investment, family pension, royalty, rent from subletting. We have done all this in detail in the previous semester. Now, other source will also include speculative income and losses, जैसे कि gambling, betting, lottery price. Now, याद रखना, that point is going to come. If you make a loss out of any speculative transaction, there are two speculative things. One is speculative business and one is speculative income which comes in other sources. I am talking right now of other sources. First two something there is no business, I am not getting into that. So if you do gambling, there is a loss. You cannot set off that loss of gambling against any income nor gambling income. You cannot say gambling ka loss hai, gambling ki income hai, I will set off. No, gambling losses cannot be set off. This is the approach. So यहाँ पे दिया है profit 10,000. Now ये कैसा profit है other source का I don't know. So if nothing is given, it is assumed that it is non-speculative type. Anyway, loss नहीं है so doesn't matter. So income from other source, I will straight away write here 10,000. Income from other source, I will straight away write here 10,000. Got it? Now what I told you. Why I wrote this 10,000 negative? Why I wrote this 10 negative? Because I can set it off. Now see, this 10 I can set off against both incomes. I can also set off against short-term capital gain. I can also set off against other source. That is the reason I wrote it outside. Long-term capital gain loss I couldn't write because there is no long-term capital gain. So वो जो loss है long-term capital मतलब in this sum there was a loss of 75,000. So that long-term capital loss of 75,000 I did not write here because there was no long-term capital gain. अगर होता I would have adjusted here and bring it outside, but it is not there. So this house property ka loss 10,000 I have written because it can be set off against short-term capital gain. It can be set off against others. As I told you, house property ka loss in the current year, you can set it off against any income. Any income matlab not that lottery wala. That I will come in when we come to the relevant sum. Right now, house property ka loss I can set off against any income, even salary income. Next sum is salary. Clear with that? That is the point. That's it. Let's take the total. After that, the most important point, long-term loss ka carry forward. Abhi dekho, how we will present? As I told you, there is no gross total income. So, total income A plus B plus C plus D plus E, this is for presentation, minus 10 plus 10 set off. So, my total income is 1,05,000. As I told you, in this chapter, as far as your syllabus is concerned, there is no deduction under chapter 6A. there is no gross total income का presentation. Got it, guys? Now what remains? Long-term capital loss of 75,000 we couldn't set off because there was no capital gains. So we will carry forward, and we can add that we will carry forward for the next 8 years. Okay. So table के नीचे now write a note. Table के नीचे now write a note. लिखो. Long-term capital loss. I'll make you write note in every sum. Long-term capital loss of 75,000. Long-term capital loss of 75,000 could not be set off in the current year. Could not be set off in the current year as there was no long-term capital gain. As there was no long-term capital gain, and therefore will be carried forward for 8 years. Therefore will be carried forward for 8 years. I'll repeat again. Long-term capital loss of 75,000 could not be set off in the current year as there was no long-term capital gain, and therefore will be carried forward for 8 years. Some people say will be carried forward for the next 8 years from assessment year 23-24. Some people just write it will be carried forward in the next year. But let's make it very precise, in brief, that we will write the period also. So the person, the examiner who is correcting the paper, he or she knows that isko law barabar. Okay? Write the note in any form. Only thing is you have to mention that it is being carried forward in the next year because it couldn't be set off. Words here and there is fine. Just see to it that your statement, what you write, it should make sense. Clear, guys? Exactly same way we will take the second question. So there is no need to change the angle of the camera. Exactly same way, second question. Let's see. From the following figures, you are required to compute the total income of Pashwa. They have given head of income में salary, house property, capital gains, short term, long term, and other sources. Okay. Now see. First there is salary. Okay. First there is income from salary. Now table. What I told you guys. See, now I'll do the same thing. Even in the previous semester, remember, I wrote this heading just for the first sum. Here also I am doing the same thing. I have written it for the first sum. All this, the name will change. Rest all will remain same for all the sums. So I am not wasting time on that. You all write it. Okay. Now, computation of total income, 2 columns. Previous sum mein salary was not there. What I told you, whether a particular head ka income is there or no, you write for presentation all the 5 things. Let's take. First देखो, salary of 4 lakhs. A, income from salary 4 lakhs. याद रखना, again I am repeating. There cannot be a loss in salary. Logic bedtime नहीं है. There cannot be loss in salary. Logic bedtime. Because as I told you, you work, get money, or you don't work, you don't get anything. There cannot be a loss. You are working with your employer. तुम तुम्हारे मालिक या सेठ को सामने से पैसा नहीं दोगे. तुमको आएगा या तो कुछ भी नहीं आएगा. So there cannot be loss. Next, house property. Okay, first let's write the head. B, income from house property. Income from house property. Now listen, there's a loss of 80,000. 80,000 का loss है. Now what I told you, keep this in mind for the entire chapter. Again I am repeating the same thing. A particular loss you will write outside. A particular loss you will write outside only if it can be set off against any of the heads. Now, house property ka loss, as I told you, you can set off against any income. There is one exception which will come later on, that is applicable for all the heads, not for house property. So this house property ka loss, I can set off against salary income. House property ka loss, I can set off against any heads, except when it comes to the end speculative income, because that will be fully taxed. Okay, so income from house property, I will set it off against salary income. So because I can set off against the salary income, I will write here negative 80,000. So house property ka loss 80. Why I have written 80? Because I can set off against salary. Then see, as I told you in the first two sums, there is no business profession. Next class we will see. So income from business profession, income from business profession, not there, then D, income from capital gains. Now I have just kept similar point for this sum also, so that we start the chapter with a bit of lighter sums. Okay, don't worry, पूरा chapter light ही है, but slowly you all know my nature very well. Slowly हम लोग level बढ़ाएंगे. First day पे pure basic, no confusion. See the data. Short term capital positive 5. Positive 5 मतलब gain है. And long term negative 150. That means there is a loss. Same like the previous sum. What I told you. I made you see the point of the theory on the first page. Now, there are many points. We will step by steps. We will cover each and every point as and when we come across the relevant sums on a gradual basis. Long-term capital loss 1,50,000. Agar if I want to set off this 1,50,000 ka loss, if I want to set off this 1,50,000 ka loss, I need to have long-term capital gains. If I want to set off this long-term capital loss of 1,50,000, I need to have long-term capital gains. Do you have long-term capital gain? No. मेरे पास long-term capital gain नहीं है. So अगर मेरे पास long-term capital gain नहीं है, I cannot set off. I will carry forward for the next 8 years till the time in future there is long-term capital gain. So if I get a long-term capital gain in the next 8 years, I can set this loss against that income. और अगर 8 साल तक loss नहीं आया, then gain नहीं आया, then I have to forget. The maximum period of carried forward is 8 years. On that basis also some will come where you have been carry forwarding since years. Time limit expires, so you cannot carry forward further. वो भी आगे जाके आएगा, but not at this stage. So again the same like the previous sum. Long-term capital gains negative 150 I will exclude from the table. Table में नहीं लिखूंगा because I don't have long-term capital gains. So I will just write short-term capital gain 5,000. I will just write short-term capital gain, that is 5,000. So income from capital gains में short-term capital gain 5,000. Income from capital gains में short-term capital gain 5,000. And the last, 10, sorry, 5. Thoda I change the figures. Okay, and the last, income from other sources कितना है 40,000. Now see, it is positive. Even if it was negative, I would have written it because that I can set off against salary income. But as I told you, other sources may, if there was some speculative income like betting, match fixing, sorry, not I can't use the word match fixing, betting or gambling, then I would have excluded it. I cannot set off that. But nothing is given, so this is normal income from other source. That means non-speculative income. That is 40,000. So I write here, getting it. So four heads में there is income or loss. तीन में there is profit gain. House property में there is a loss. And the reason I have written loss here, you can set off anywhere. 4 lakh के सामने करो, fine. 5 के सामने करो and 75 against other, fine. 40 के सामने करो, fine. So this 80 I can set off against any of the heads. So that is the reason when I take the total, it will be the net amount. This you all did not have in the previous sem because previous sem में ये chapter था ही नहीं. So previous sem में either all were positive और जिधर भी negative था, automatically according to the data of the sum, it was the loss was such that you can set it off. But here in this chapter, you have to be cautious. So that's it, guys. My total income will be, just we will show the presentation in a better way. A plus B plus C plus D plus E. 4 lakh minus 80, 320, 325, 365. So this is 365. 45, 445, 320. So my total income is A plus B plus C plus D plus E, 365. Keep this habit. Whether a particular head of income is there or not there, you list down all the 5 heads for better presentation. As far as your syllabus is concerned, they ask around 7 to 8 marks ka. And if they ask you a 15 mark ka question, normal trend is it will be having 2 questions, one of 8 marks or one of 7 marks. You all know that your syllabus, either they can ask you one 15 mark ka question or they can split it into one of 8 and one of 7. Okay, and now don't forget the note, that is long-term capital loss of 1,50,000. Similar to the previous sum. Dekho, same note, write down. The long-term capital loss, of 1,50,000, the long-term capital loss of 1,50,000 could not be set off in the current year, as there was no long-term capital gain, and therefore it will be carried forward, for next 8 years. It will be carried forward for next 8 years. Again, I am repeating, there are many points which will come. Today, if I explain, sab bouncer jayega. So, as and when we come to the relevant sum, that time I will keep on discussing the provisions and I will make you read the points of the notes also as and when that particular part comes. Got it, guys? So, this session, what we studied was what exactly do you mean by set off and carry forward, and we did 2 sums and dono sum mein I just kept the basic point of set off and carry forward. Again, I'll repeat, when you set off this loss, there are certain rules. In this, we just saw one rule. Long-term capital loss can be set off only against long-term capital gain. If not, you will carry forward. Next class onwards, we will have all the variations of all the 5 heads. Of course, when I say 5 heads, salary income के सामने you can set off a particular loss, but there cannot be a loss in salary. और एक चीज ध्यान में रखना है, I'll come to that point. If there is a business loss, you cannot set off against salary. बिजनेस लॉस you cannot set off against salary. वो point ध्यान में रखना. No doubt आगे जाके I'll be repeating it many times. So guys, as of now, forget all that. Just focus on these two sums as of today का session, and starting का just see the video once again and understand the basic of set off and carry forward. See, always remember, I have told you this multiple times in the earlier subjects, other subjects and earlier sessions also. Understand what is the meaning of the name of the chapter. वो आ गया, automatically mindset change हो जाएगा, and you will start thinking on that ground. So keep that in mind. So that's it, guys. I wind up the session here. See you all in the next class, where we'll be taking few more sums. I think 3-4 sums, so I should be able to manage maybe more sums also, and some classes may maybe 2 or 3 depending upon question 2. That's it, guys. See you all in the next class, and please before we meet, please see this video carefully, so automatically you all only can go ahead at a bit faster pace. That's it. Take care, guys. See you all in the next class.